And it says we're going live. And it says we are live. I think we are live. So I am joined by David Younger of Inklingwood Studio, who is developing Foolish Mortals. And you're on Kickstarter now. So hello, David. How are you?
Hello, I'm really good.
You must be very good now.
After what I saw this morning, I'm over the moon right now. I expected 30 full days of panic and worry, and that we hit it in 24 hours has just blown me away.
Yeah, I mean it's been pretty incredible. You reached your goal in one day. I mean, I would love to be able to take credit for the success of your Kickstarter, but you succeeded before our interview, so we don't really need to chat, do we?
We just finish it here. Nice to talk to you.
Yeah, nice chatting with you, Dave. So that's David Younger, everyone. No, still delighted to chat with you. As I mentioned before recording, when you first announced your game, I was hoping to have you on the podcast because the screenshots of the story kind of like, oh, I'm very interested, and the screenshots in the background as well. When you put this on Facebook, now I will allow you to speak you will speak in just a moment, I promise. But when you first announced the game on Facebook, now usually, I mean, there's a lot of developers who announce their games on Facebook. Sometimes it might get 3 or 4 likes, 3 comments. Sometimes it might be some less than positive feedback to say, oh, it's not. But you got, I don't know, something 100 and something likes and don't know how many comments, all positive, which is unheard of on social media and Facebook.
Yeah, it was. I was quite amazed by that. I think it's because the graphic style that we're going for isn't a one that's typically done with indie adventures. And so because of that, it kind of stands out a little. Well, I hope at least.
I think it does. It's I mean, the backgrounds look fantastic. Now there are people who have joined us, Gerald Hill and Liam Orr Findlay. Believe you know these people?
I do. These have all contributed to the game. So hi guys.
Well, hello guys, and George. Sorry, apologies because I'm going to butcher your name. George Diaku. He says can't wait in the chat as well. And yeah, well, hello everyone. If you're watching us live, thank you for joining us. If you have any questions for David Younger, please feel free to put them in the chat, and I'll be happy to ask them. It's great if it's interactive. It's not just me asking questions, because I'm sure people have better questions than I would have. George says close enough.
I'll introduce who they are because George is one of the animators that's worked on the game, who works for Jammy Custard Animation, they're incredible animation that they do. Just every time they send me a new bit of animation, I just have to dance around the room at how cool it is.
Yeah, it's a good thing that we're saying positive things about the animation and the background. But genuinely.
And then Gerald is the voice of the fisherman, Ned Kipps, in the demo.
I haven't come across him yet in the demo
as well. And Liam's done 2 quite unusual things. He's done the artwork for the puzzle book, which is one of the Kickstarter rewards. And he also is the mastermind behind the scents pack, the spectral scents from the Devil's Rock Perfumery, because he actually works for a theme park smell company called Aroma Prime, and messaged me saying, why don't we do some smells for your adventure game?
Wow. Okay. This sounds pretty cool. We'll be talking about the benefits and what are rewards for backing the game on Kickstarter, which is out now. It's still going. Yeah. It
runs till November 3rd or 4th, I think.
So you're probably getting it like $1 million by then.
I don't think
the way it's going.
My full expectation is it's just going to plateau here, and just that's all it'll stay until for the next 30 days. Well, that's what I'm worried about.
I mean, look, we shall see. We'll be talking stretch goals. Also, Josh Ritter says hello. So hello, Josh. So again, thank you everyone for joining. Any questions, put them in the chat. Yes, you can ask questions even if you're a part of the game. Feel free to do so. Well, actually, for people watching, and I suppose for people listening later on as well, Would you like to see a trailer? I know you've probably seen this a million times before, but just to get us started, would you like to see a trailer of Foolish Mortals? Okay, it will be seamless. Yes, I should have prepared this, but we're somewhere. There we go. So here is a trailer for Foolish Mortals.
From Inklingwood Studios comes a merry and macabre point-and-click adventure game, Foolish Mortals. As young adventurer Murphy McCallan follow cryptic clues and solve perplexing puzzles across the enigmatic island of Devil's Rock in search of the lost treasure of Belmore Manor, where 30 years ago an entire wedding suddenly and mysteriously vanished. But to find a location known only by the dead, you'll have no choice but to ask them. Then, when your esoteric explorations awaken an evil phantom, determined to find the treasure before you, what follows is a chilling chase through crumbling crypts, voodoo vaults, and the mysterious manor itself, in a supernatural battle that spans both life and death. Stopping that arcane evil will require not only reaching the treasure first, but also finding out what happened in the house all those years ago. In order to do that, perhaps you'll need to die too. Foolish Mortals.
So we saw that lovely big box at the end there as well.
Yeah, I had to put that in because I know a lot of adventure game fans want big boxes, and I had to just put that there to show I like big boxes too. As you can tell from what I've got behind me.
Yeah, no, I've got them back in my other house, my family home, but I had to bring them up now as well. Well, George said, whenever I show this to friends, I'm just saying, that's my bit. That's also my bit. And you should be so proud. You should be very proud of it. Now Liam had a question. We will get to that question in just a bit. But my first question to you would be like what I ask all the developers who are on this podcast, probably the most difficult question, although maybe not in this case. What is or are your favorite adventure games?
It's a tricky question. There are a lot. I'd say the two biggest ones are the two that I go on about as the big inspirations behind the game, which are Broken Sword, particularly Broken Sword 1, but Broken Sword 2 and 5 are spectacular as well. And Monkey Island 2 specifically, but also all the Monkey Islands are brilliant.
Yeah, specifically Monkey Island 2. Oh, that's...
Yeah.
It was a good choice.
I think so. Yeah, they're fantastic, just absolutely brilliant. But then I love loads of other ones. Toonstruck, I think, is brilliant. The Discworld games are fantastic. Grim Fandango. I'm just going to list adventure games now, I think.
Well, I'm actually started playing Discworld a couple of years ago. I bought them legally on eBay for the PlayStation because I paid quite not too much, but I remember it was quite stressful because it was myself and another person bidding for the game, and then my dad got involved, and we were bidding like 1 or 2 cents above the other person, and at the last second I got it. So I thought I might as well start to play it myself.
I remember having the big box back in the 90s, and then I threw away I think all but 2 of my big boxes, and now I'm trying to just recollect the whole collection they had, plus all the ones that I didn't have as well. Yeah. So I've been doing a lot of eBaying for big boxes as well. It might have been me you were bidding against.
Well, this isn't a big box, so I don't know if it was you, but that would have been very funny if it was you. Well, if it was you, sorry, if you're listening or watching this, sorry, but I would.
I'll make anyway. The PC one.
Yeah, well, so before we talk about the game itself, why don't you tell us a little bit about you, what your experience is, So what were you doing before you started working on this game? So what was your job before you started this? Or
so my background is actually in theme park design.
Interesting.
And so I got to work at Walt Disney Imagineering in California for some time. Then after that, I went freelance and was doing freelance theme design for a while. Then I went into toy design, but I was still taking on kind of theme design projects as well. I wrote a book. So Liam knows about this because he's a theme park person as well. I wrote a book on theme park design, which has really been quite successful. But it was mainly theme park design. And actually the reason that I got into doing the adventure game, apart from wanting to do an adventure game since I was 5, I think right when I was a kid, I was designing adventure games on paper. And I knew at some point I wanted to do an adventure game. And it was actually COVID that made me make the leap to doing it, because when that happened, all theme park design work just dried up because all the projects went on hold. So I thought, hey, well, if I've got some free time, I've been wanting to make this adventure game for ages. Now's the best time to do it. And it kind of worked out well as well, because my wife was working as a teacher before COVID. Then she went on maternity leave and COVID happened. So she had a bunch of time where she wasn't working. So she said, I'll learn to program it. And she's done amazing. Like, this entire game is programmed by my wife, apart from maybe 2 more complicated scenes. And she'd never done programming before Foolish Mortals. I'd never designed a video game before Foolish Mortals, but it seems to be working out.
Yeah, that's astonishing. I mean, that you and she just picked up programming just when she was off and during COVID. So COVID was, good for something at least. At least we got this game.
Yeah, it's trying to make the best of a bad situation, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, I know COVID. I mean, I would hope not to go back to lockdowns and that, but of course, I know a lot of people are suffering with COVID, but at least now, on the positive side, we're getting a really, really good looking game from it. So well, congratulations to the both of you. You've made the leap. And at least from the demo and the trailer and the screenshots, it looks fantastic. So you took the leap then, and so first of all, your company, you set up the company Inklingwood then, and I'm always curious how people come up with the names of companies. So how did you come up with the name of this one? What is Inklingwood?
Well, actually, it goes back to when I was doing theme park design, and so the book that I wrote was published by the same company, but under the trading name Inklingwood Press. And Inklingwood was a themed attraction that I just designed for fun, where it was just in a forest and you could go down into tunnels, and there was going to be a pirate ship there. It was just a fun hobby project that I designed, Inklingwood. And there were going to be these, it was all going to be based on storybooks. And the idea was that these little ink creatures came up out of the books and created this attraction. And this was before Splatoon, or at least it was I knew about Splatoon, but then I found out they're called Inklings. I think that's right, but it wasn't meant to be that way. And so I've also done some Lego design as well, and put some instructions for that under Inkling Bricks. And then so when I got to video game design, I needed another one. So Inklingwood Studios, that could be it.
Fantastic. And how did you find the change? You're going from designing theme park theme park rides. Liam says, by the way, David's book is the Bible of the theme park industry. So you're quite well known, it seems. So how do you take the skills that you learned from designing theme park rides and that into making this video game? Are there some that are similar, or that you learn new things? Is it a completely new experience for you, or how did you find it?
Well, I think so much overlaps. It's crazy how much it overlaps. So the theme park design that I was doing it's very much the Disney and Universal style of putting a guest inside a story, like building a story in physical dimensions. And that's just what a video game is. It's telling the story through the environment that you go through, particularly adventure games. And all of that like slow delivery of story elements, and environments that are captivating, and the thematic experience of all of that overlaps. I joke, video game design and theme park design are pretty much exactly the same, only I don't have to worry about queue lines and restrooms anymore.
Yeah, that's true. You don't have people complaining about the queue lines, and
I'd also say part of the game might be just wish fulfillment, that I wish that I could walk around the rides at a theme park without getting told off by the employees. And an adventure game allows me to do that.
Well, I mean, that's how Monkey Island started, from the theme park ride,
yeah.
and history was made then. So I'm not sure. I don't think Ron Gilbert designed theme park ride. I believe Larry Ahern does. Noah Falstein,
Jonathan Ackley,
and Jonathan Ackley.
LucasArts. Yeah, he went to Walt Disney Imagineering. I had when I was at Imagineering, I had lunch with him one day. And it took all self-restraint I had not to just geek out about Curse of Monkey Island with him.
Oh, so you had, and did you ask him about Monkey Island?
I did ask him a bit about it. Yeah, I couldn't resist. And he told me how Murray is in one of the attractions he designed at Magic Kingdom.
Oh wow!
I don't think that was public knowledge until he joined Twitter, and then he told everyone about it there. So for a good number of years, I knew that Murray was there before the people did.
You had the inside scoop then.
Yes, yeah. And also that attraction that he designed, he managed to get Monkey Island music into the attraction, which I just think is fantastic. Yeah, Magic Kingdom, there's where you sign up for the adventure that you go on, there's Monkey Island music. And I went in there when I was in Florida, and I was just going, and the cast member there actually went, what's so special? And I had to explain what it was.
And did the cast member himself or herself know?
No, I had no idea. But I appreciated it. I thought it was awesome.
It's these little things that the people add, that, like Jonathan Ackley. Oh no, that's fantastic. So now Liam had a question. I suppose you've already started to answer it. How did this project start? So I suppose then you spoke about how during COVID and all you started it. I suppose. What kind of how did you come up with this story, this setting? First of all, what is the story? What is the setup for the game? And then how did you come up with this?
Okay, so Foolish Mortals I describe as a merry and macabre point-and-click adventure game. And the setup for it is you play Murphy McCallan, who's a young treasure hunter without much of a past, but he got given this magazine which told him the story of Belmore Manor and the lost treasure that is said to still lay somewhere on Devil's Rock, and Murphy decided, if I haven't got much of a past, this can be my ticket to a future. I'm going to go there and try and find it. And so as Murphy, you go to the island and quickly find out that only the dead know where the treasure is hidden. But if only the dead know where the treasure is hidden, you just got to ask the dead. Part one of the game is you've got a voodoo manuscript. You've got to collect 5 ingredients to cast a summoning spell to summon the ghosts of the mansion so that you can ask them where the treasure is.
Oh, nice. So it's, as you mentioned, it's macabre. So these, I mean, you say just asking the dead as if that's a very easy, normal thing.
Right, yeah.
So how in the game, then, how do you ask the dead? Are they ghosts? Are they corpses?
Well, when you get there, the witch doctor tells you that there are spirits in the house, but they're trapped halfway between the mortal realm and the spirit realm. And they've been trapped there for the 30 years since a wedding at the house just suddenly and mysteriously disappeared. No one knows why it disappeared, why the people vanished and everything, but they're stuck in the house. You can't see them, but they're stuck in the house. And so if you want to talk to them, you have to follow the witch doctor's advice and summon them so that you can start to talk to them.
Yeah, and as I mentioned to you before recording, just that whole backstory, which is in the demo, there are multiple twists and turns. I'm not going to reveal it here because I think it might be nice for people to see it themselves. But it went completely the opposite of how I thought it would go and how stories like that would go. That's like, oh, and this happened. Oh, I didn't expect that, and then it went this direction. And
the whole story has a bunch of twists in it, and it's very much like a mystery story. Like throughout, as well as trying to find this treasure, you very quickly find out that the only way to find the treasure is to try and figure out what happened in the house 30 years ago. And I've tried to make it so that there's 4 parts to the game, just like a Monkey Island game. And I've tried to make it so that there is some new twist, some new story reveal, something exciting that happens at every part as you go through it. And I can't wait for people to hear the full story.
Yeah, no, I mean, what I love about speaking to developers such as yourselves, that it's clear the passion that goes into making games like this, that this isn't, I mean, probably help if you had a lot of money and fame and all of that, but it's clear that the reason you guys are making these games is your passion for the genre and passion for these games as well. So, and I can't wait to play the game and to find out the secrets.
Yeah, well, that's the thing. I still have completely vivid memories of being 5 years old and sitting in my cousin's computer room playing Monkey Island 1 on the Amiga. I've wanted to make an adventure game for so long. I needed to do it.
Well, now you are well on your way to making an adventure game. And I suppose, how did this idea come about? There are more questions in the chat, which I will get to. But I suppose, how did the idea for this particular story come about in this haunted island with ghosts and treasure?
Well, when I decided I wanted to make an adventure game, I actually wrote 3 different stories, like 1-page story synopses, and one of them had a bit of a gimmick to do, and I just thought, well, there's no way I can do that for my first adventure game. And then I had 2 other ones, and one was this big grand story. I'm absolutely in love with it, and the other one I thought was okay, but not quite the adventure game, my dream adventure game. And so I decided, actually, I'm going to make the one that I wasn't that as passionate about. I actually decided that was what turned into Foolish Mortals. But my reasoning for it was, if this is I'm not going to be able to do my first adventure game justice. So I'll go with the smaller project because that's more manageable, more doable. Problem is, I just fell in love with it even more than the one that I thought was my dream project. Now Foolish Mortals is by far the project I'm so captivated by. And you get this advice of, when you're doing a video game for the first time, start small. And I did start small, but it grew.
Got bigger and bigger.
Yeah, it's very much now a full length Monkey Island Broken Sword length adventure game. But I figured if I want to make my dream adventure game, I might as well do it properly.
Yeah. I mean, I'm not sure if I would consider this small per se, from what I've seen of it, or from the demo at least. It does. I know that from the demo that it seems at least part 1 is self-contained, that it's on the island, but still there seems to be good few locations and that we can visit. So
I think the demo has 8 locations, I think, in it, but part 1 of the game has the full part 1 of the game, which the demo is a segment of, has, I think, just under 20 locations.
Okay.
So it's a lot bigger, and obviously the demo has you find 2 of the ingredients. The full game has you find 5 of the ingredients. So it definitely gets bigger. Okay,
and now then, as we mentioned, your Kickstarter succeeded on its very first day. Now we can talk about stretch goals in just a bit, but do you plan on making the game even bigger now, or have you decide? Are you still thinking, what do we do with this extra money?
Actually, yeah, I'm over the moon that I get to make it bigger. So because I am trying to make a game that's like at the scale of Broken Sword and Monkey Island, but with a budget that is a tiny, tiny fragment of the budgets they have, I did have to be really kind of strict with myself about what I could put into the game and what I needed to cut out. I think they talk about minimum viable product. I thought, well, what's the minimum I need to produce an adventure game that I'd be proud of and happy with? But part of that was that the original Voodoo manuscript was going to have you find more than 5 Voodoo ingredients. So I did have possible other puzzles figured out how they could be. And so I just announced 2 of the stretch goals today, actually. And the first stretch goal is to add 2 additional backgrounds into the game. And the key thing there is that there are additional backgrounds in the game that are tied into their story. They're not just like filler backgrounds that go in the middle and you don't really do anything on them. There is actually going to be meaningful interaction that takes place on them. And then the other stretch goal that I announced was to add a 6th voodoo ingredient back onto that manuscript with a whole puzzle chain that you'll have to go through, just like the other 5 ingredients.
Nice. So already now you can add stuff that you previously cut out of the game.
Yeah.
So,
That's it. And there's also, because what I'm trying to do is kind of gather feedback from people as much as I can on what stretch goals they would like into the game. And one of the bits of feedback I've had so far was some of the backgrounds feel a bit too static. And so one of the stretch goals, if we manage to get there, is I want to add in additional animation in the background, like seagulls flying in the background, or twinkling stars in any background that has the stars in it, or the waves slightly rippling, or reflecting light off the moon, things like that, just to respond to what people have suggested.
Yeah, that's another thing. And I think, again, I mentioned this before recording, that you and the team are doing very well, is you're engaging in with the community, that with the Kickstarter and on Discord and on the internet, and you are working on feedback. I believe you've already added some changes to the demo based on some of the feedback, or again, already, which is pretty remarkable.
I think that's pretty much our entire day yesterday was me just responding to everything on Kickstarter, whilst my wife sat next to me, taking in bug reports and suggestions of fixes, and just immediately programming them out and testing things out so that we could put out. Yeah, I think we put out a 1.1 version of the demo today, which had about 12 changes in it.
Wow.
Yeah, all responding to bug reports that we received, or suggestions on how people think things should be changed. Like we increased Murphy's walk speed. That was one of that was like the major thing that we got back, which is totally reasonable thing to do. Especially, I should have guessed that after playing Return to Monkey Island, where Guybrush just zooms around the background. Okay, that's how you need to do it nowadays. It's not 1997 anymore. So we put that in.
We're all very impatient and demanding players now. There's a lot of games to play, a lot of things to do, and then I want to go watch Netflix, and so we're very impatient.
That's it. Yeah, that's exactly right. And I didn't want people to be frustrated with the puzzles. It's that thing of the demo is for 2 things. It's for one, it's to show off, this is what we're planning. What we're planning for the game. Do you like it? Please back us. And the other is to say, what don't you like about it, so that we can make those changes and make it a game that people want to play.
Yeah, no, it seems to be working so far. Well, I'll just get to some of the comments now from some of the people. So first of all, George says the Inkling trilogy, which would be nice. I'd be up for it so far.
Yeah, 3 stories. Yeah. I think that would be the decade of my life.
Well, hopefully it'll be well worth it.
Yeah, maybe.
Gerald, I mean, look, some people take 10 years to make one game. I have spoken to 1 or 2 developers who've been working for 10 years and over on one game. So if you can make 3 games in that time, yeah, that is a success.
That's a success. Yeah.
Gerald Hill again says, I can't wait to see the other games because this one is amazing. One of the questions, actually, Liam asked about the attraction that had the Monkey Island music. He asked, what attraction has this music? So
that one is a pirate's adventure, Treasure of the Seven Seas.
Oh,
it was where you get given a pirate map, and you walk around Adventureland, and you get to trigger things like a cannon firing or a skeleton rising up out of the water.
That sounds interesting.
It's really clever. It's really fun.
Okay, well, next if I ever do get to go there, I'll have to check it out.
Yeah. But I mean, Jonathan actually is incredible because he really brought adventure games to theme parks. There's a bunch of attractions that he did that are all about, they're not rides as in you sit in a ride system, but you walk around the park and you're given some device that can trigger things around you, and they're so fun to play. And they have puzzles in them as well, and you've got choices. Do you go to this place? Would you go to this place? And they're really clever. They even have, I mean, when we talk about the big box, this will come up. But do you know the term feelies? that was used by Infocom for the things that came in the box?
Remind me again, because I started after Infocom.
Yeah, I was after them after Infocom as well, but I got fascinated by the stuff. Their big boxes used to come with all sorts of weird stuff. Like I think the Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy game came with a miniature space fleet, which was just like a Ziploc bag with nothing in it, because obviously they were miniaturized, but they labeled it that way and it was really cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, and like Monkey Island did it as well with the code wheel, but these things that you can feel. And Jonathan Ackley was so clever with some of the games he worked on, like Kim Possible World Showcase Adventure at Epcot, because there are moments where you'll go into a shop and you'll have to say a code phrase to a cast member, and then they'll give you like a tea bag or something, but the tea bag has a code on it that you put into the telephone booth in the United Kingdom pavilion. And
that sounds very adventure game.
It is, it really is.
And then do you combine the tea bag with a fishing rod or something? No, that sounds fantastic. And DLS, hello DLS. They say feelies are the best. So and Liam says really interesting. And then Jim Hughes asks, who is the narrator in the trailer? Sounds very familiar.
Yeah, so that's George Ledoux. I hope I'm pronouncing his surname right, but an incredible voice actor. And I can actually say with the trailer as well, if you watch our trailer and also watch the original trailer for Broken Sword 1, you'll see we were very much basing our trailer on what Broken Sword did. There's a voice actor that did the Broken Sword 1 trailer that also voiced the opening for Count Duckula, which was a British cartoon series in like the 70s, 80s, I think, something like that. But his voice is fantastic, and I just went to George and said, "Can you sound like this?" And he nailed it. It is perfect.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, I think a lot of people would agree with you there. Well, thank you, Jim. Josh Ritter asks, did the script go through many rewrites, or was the story already very clear in your mind from the start? I mean, we already spoke about the start of it, but have there been many rewrites since you started working on this, chose this story for the game?
I don't think there was many rewrites, but the time it took to get the story in its final form was about 6 months.
Okay.
And my wife and I would kind of just go for walks, and she'd just have to listen to me for the whole walk, go, maybe this could happen. What about if this happened? Would that make sense? And I think there was one bit, there's a couch right next to me, and I was sat on that couch when I had the light bulb moment of how the twists all come together and how the story works. And that was when okay, I've got it now. I've got the story. Let's try and start making the game.
Okay. And then Adventure Game Geek asks, is that an inventory item t-shirt that you're wearing?
It is. Yeah, Monkey Island 2.
Oh, that's fantastic.
Yeah, it was a Christmas present from my wife. I think my wife's got a never-ending options for Christmas presents for me, because there's just loads of adventure game stuff that I want.
Yeah, well, I mean, she sounds like a keeper. I've never met her, but if she gives you adventure game merchandise, it's like, yeah, I think you're very lucky.
and when I say to her, I want to make a full-length professional adventure game, she didn't say, that's ridiculous. She said, go on, then.
And I'll help you. I'll just learn programming while I'm at it.
Exactly, yeah. The funny thing about the t-shirt is that I wanted to do a Foolish Mortals version of this t-shirt because we have 100 inventory items in the game. So kind of pretty much similar. At one point, I actually played through a bunch of adventure games and wrote down the number of inventory items in each one, just so I knew I was kind of hitting the right scale of game. But we have over 100, and I wanted to put them all on a t-shirt, but I realized I would be giving away so many spoilers for what the puzzles were if I wore that anywhere. So
maybe in a few years, or after
once the game's released,
yeah,
I'm making that t-shirt definitely.
Do you plan on adding any merchandise for while we're talking about t-shirts to the game, or?
I don't. Maybe I think Redbubble allows you to do something like that, but it's not something I'm really thinking about at the moment.
Okay.
Even if it's just for me, I'd like to make a t-shirt one day.
Yeah, look, absolutely. Like, I think you have a big box, so then as well merchandising, even if it's just for you, so you can show off saying just one in existence.
Yeah, we actually, I should say, we did consider doing T-shirts for the Kickstarter, but there were kind of two reasons we didn't. One is that getting the sizing right for countries all around the world would just be a nightmare. And the other one was Jamie Stegmaier, I think is his name. He wrote a book on crowdfunding because he's a board game designer who's crowdfunded a bunch of really awesome board games. And he said, his advice was do something that's appropriate to your product. If you're making an adventure game, the adventure game should be your product, not T-shirts. You're not a clothing manufacturer. Yeah. So that's what I simplified it down to. Now, that's not to say we didn't pack our big box with cool stuff, but they're all meant to be things that directly tie into the adventure game.
Yeah, I would agree. Yeah, because there have been cases with other developers that say you're going to have T-shirts and all of this physical merchandise, and then what I don't think they realize is the cost of it as well and the difficulty. And so at least with the big box, I'm sure it's going to be challenging as well, but it is more relevant to an adventure game, because I don't think there are many T-shirts of adventure games, but there are a lot of big boxes. So I would agree with that as well. Now, DLS had a question. I will get to that as well. But you mentioned in the Kickstarter that you wanted, I believe, the feel of it. So, like Monkey Island, as we mentioned, was like riding Pirates of the Caribbean ride. You wanted this game to be able to step out of your Doom buggy on Disneyland's Haunted Mansion.
Right.
So, which we spoke about, and I suppose going on from that, you have mentioned, I believe, that this game, your two biggest inspirations are Monkey Island and Broken Sword. So a lot of developers say things like that. This is, Monkey Island meets Broken Sword and all. In this game in particular, how exactly do you mean that this game, or how do you envision Foolish Mortals being like Monkey Island and Broken Sword?
It is a common thing that people say, and you can understand why. It's because it kind of it definitely kind of paints a picture of the type of game. It's
marketing as well, but in your case,
in my case, it was really a conscious effort because they were my two favorite games. And the tricky thing with it is that they're not two games that are easy to push together. They're very different games, and so it took quite a bit of thinking to figure out what is the way that we can combine them. So most obviously, the way we've managed to combine them is that the graphic style is Broken Sword style line work meets Monkey Island style coloring.
Okay.
Which is the most obvious one. But then when you get into it, there's a lot of lot of ways we've taken one thing from one and one thing from the other. So the story structure, for example, is very much Monkey Island style structure. It's 4 parts, and in each part, you're given multiple items that you have to find in kind of parallel chains. In the early parts, they're just kind of, they don't intersect, but by the time you get to part 3, it's a whole tangled web of interconnected puzzles, just like Booty Island, Scab Island, and Fat Island, and Monkey Island 2. But then from Broken Sword, we took the first person past tense narration of telling you the story, and which was also one of my favorite films is Sunset Boulevard. So kind of classic film noir, but that's done with this past tense narration, which is something that we wanted to do as well. Obviously, the interface is very much Broken Sword style interface. The dialogue is LucasArts style dialogue, where you have written out dialogue options. The main reason there being we couldn't afford the budget for hundreds of icons the way Broken Sword does it. That was a cost thing. That was one of those things where we had to be careful about. And we have like the humor is very much meant to come from the eccentricity of the character. So we don't break the fourth wall. We don't have references. We just have hopefully funny, weird characters to entertain people. That's hopefully how we tried to meld it. But yeah, hopefully it'll work.
Yeah, I mean, I've played about 20 minutes of your demo, and I think so far, I think it seems to be kind of, you get the feel of it. As you mentioned, the coloring and graphics, but also the first person narration. And also, I believe there was a moment in the game where it had the bell sound, when I think something like in Broken Sword, when
Right.
you hear something, and then the conversations with the Undertaker. But again, you mentioned that there aren't really any references, because I did feel, okay, this is similar, but it's also its own thing. It's not trying to be these games, which I think a lot of other adventure games try to be that. Or with, now again, I don't particularly mind references, but sometimes it take me out of a game. I don't know what your feelings are, what your thoughts are.
Yeah, I think sometimes they can be done well, and sometimes they
Yes.
can just take you out of the moment. Like one of my friends is Tom Hardwidge, who is doing Lucy Dreaming, and his game has a ton of references to stuff which work brilliantly.
Yeah, I do have to mention Tom Hardwidge. Somehow, at least from the demo, it does work, because at no point did I feel like I want to play those games. It kind of, I don't know how it happened that.
Yeah, well, I think it's like it fits the theme and the story and style, and it feels holistic, I think. Whereas I think some other games, if you're trying to, like, his game is trying to immerse you in 1990s culture, but if I was trying to immerse the player in 1930s Louisiana, but then was talking about Star Wars and Grim Fandango and everything, it wouldn't quite work. So
yeah, if you had the same
that's not to
jokes,
say there aren't references, I think, but mainly they're probably theme park references. I'm kind of really interested for theme park fans to play through the game and see if they can point out some of the things that I referenced there.
Okay, well, I'm sure we shall find out. Now, going on to the making of the game, DLS in the chat asks, are you using a game engine or building your own from scratch?
We're using Visionaire Studio, which is terrific. It's got some quirks, but it's really, really good. And it exports as well to like PC, Mac, iOS, Linux, Switch. So it's a really good engine.
So presumably that's one of the reasons. But why did you choose this over all the other game engines like Unity, Unreal Engine, or creating your own? What was it about Visionaire Studio?
It was mainly left up to my wife. She made this decision, but it was primarily because of Lua, being able to code in Lua, because there are a couple of puzzles that are a bit different to typical adventure game puzzles. I should clarify, they're not like timed things, they're not action-based things. They are puzzles that adventure game players will like, but they're not the typical adventure game puzzle. And it was going to be really tricky to program that in another engine. We actually, when we started the original thing, one bit of advice that Ron Gilbert gives for programming adventure games is to completely skeleton out your game as a wireframe game from the start. And we actually did that. We programmed the whole of part one with my terrible sketchy drawings. This is before we got any artists involved. For the whole of part one in Adventure Creator for Unity. But then we thought, okay, well, why don't we do this in Visionaire as well and see which one we prefer? So we programmed both part ones entirely in both engines. And from that, we thought that, Visionaire was the one we wanted to go for.
Nice. And I believe the Dalek that also use Visionaire for Deponia, their games, I believe.
Yeah.
And more recently, 9 More Lives. Again, we really, really liked. They use Visionaire as well, and it looked fantastic. All the games have actually looked fantastic.
Lucy Dreaming as well. That's Visionaire.
Is it? Oh, I didn't know.
Yes.
That looks so different.
Right. Yeah. It's really classic style, isn't it?
Yeah. Oh no, that's fantastic. And Liam says I like to hurry back in the demo.
As a theme park reference. Yeah.
Okay. That's one. So, well, I suppose you mentioned about some of the puzzles in the demo. You didn't want to frustrate them, but then I suppose you still want to chat. I mentioned that us adventure game fans can be very fickle, that the puzzles are too difficult, they're too easy, not easy enough. So How did you go about creating the puzzles, and what did you do anything to help the player, or do you leave players on your own devices, or just Just so what kind of puzzles can we expect, and how do you go about creating them?
So they're totally classic adventure game puzzles. That, like I said, there's no timed thing, there's no action things in there.
Okay, so no timed mazes when you talk classic slider puzzles, or
no, I'm trying to think. No slider puzzles, no block puzzles, no. Yeah, I'm trying to just kind of go through the puzzles in my head to make sure that is correct. But yeah, it's very much the classic style of puzzle. Actually, the first thing I did when I started writing out the puzzles was I played through a bunch of adventure games and wrote down and then what became an encyclopedia of puzzle archetypes, where
yes.
Which were like conversation dialogue puzzles and help puzzles, kill puzzles, some destroy puzzle, these types of puzzles, because my aim was that I didn't want the puzzle just to be constantly, this character needs this item, or if you give them this, they'll give you that. Now go to this character and they'll give you that. I want it to be more interesting than that. So that's what I did. And then it turned out that I realized that that might be helpful to other adventure game designers. So for every day, I think for the past 2 weeks, maybe longer, and for the next 4 weeks, I'm posting one of those entries every day on my Twitter. And from that, I had some people messaging me and going, "Are you going to put these into a booklet? Because that would be really useful."
Yeah.
I realized, well, I'm putting together big boxes for the game. I'll put that into the big box as well. And it was Liam that did the awesome artwork. I don't think I've yet to show a close-up of the cover that he drew for it, but it's an assortment of classic adventure game inventory items on there. Every single item is from a different from an adventure game, and hopefully people might have a bit of fun figuring out which one is which.
No, fantastic. Thank you, Liam, for look forward to seeing it. And that's really interesting, because I was seeing on Twitter that it's a puzzle theory.
Yes, that's it. Yeah,
and you've already had good feedback to it, which I'm sure it's really helpful to other developers, because I imagine do you think was it difficult to try and add puzzles that are logical but challenging and well integrated into the story and into the game?
Yeah, I hope so. Yeah, I hope I've done it successfully. One of the things that I want to get feedback really from the demo is whether people find the puzzle difficulty the right amount. Now, it is the beginning of the game, so it is meant to be short, linear puzzles, kind of similar to part 1 of Monkey Island 2. And they get longer in part 2 and convoluted in part 3. But I still want to make sure that they are the right level of difficulty. As it seems like the best way it's easy to make puzzles easier by signposting them more, but it's hard to make them more difficult. But I think it just had to kind of be instinct as to how you do the puzzles. I think the way I went about doing the puzzles was I wrote down a list of aspirational things that I'd like to happen in the game. Like I'd like for the player to get buried alive, for example. And then I built the story moments about how can I get the player to that position. And I also did put a lot of work into making sure that there were no dead ends throughout the entire game. So people, adventure game fans don't have to be worried about that.
So, okay, that's good. So no Sierra like dead ends or early 90s, late 80s.
And for a game about ghosts where Murphy opens the game by saying, "I'd have to die too," it's not a player death in a Sierra style player death.
It's part of the story, it's part of the story. Okay, I'm very curious. It's so then we heard some of the voice acting. Well, in the trailer we mentioned that the narrator, and then in the game we have some of the voice actors. So what can you tell us about some of the voice actors? I mentioned to you before that they sounded authentic. I'm not from Louisiana, but they sounded like they were from Louisiana, where the game is set. So what can you tell us with the voice actors who we meet in the game? And
so I'm not from Louisiana either, which so maybe I think they sound authentic as well. But no, I think the voice actors kind of just were amazing. In terms of authenticity, actually, the biggest thing there is that there are some Britishisms that I have written into the script that I didn't realize were Britishisms. So it was I didn't know to edit them out. But we got Josh Mandel, who is adventure game royalty.
Oh, wow.
Quite literally with King Graham. He joined for the demo and co-wrote a lot of the conversations with me and went through the dialogue I wrote to edit out things that were British. So yeah.
So it
cool.
does sound authentic now with Josh Mandel, who came on board. How did you get him on board?
It was I knew I needed a co-writer because there's so much dialogue in an adventure game that I was kind of trying to produce and direct it at the same time as I was trying to write it was just getting really tricky, especially when you don't have someone to bounce content ideas off. Like the way it ended up happening is Josh would write something and that would mean I got inspiration to write a whole other bit of dialogue, and that would inspire him to write another bit of dialogue. And it's just a much more productive process if you had someone. So I initially just put online, I'm looking for a co-writer for an adventure game. And I think either Josh directly emailed me or someone suggested him to me. And that's how it came about.
Oh, fantastic. It's great. Might as well get the best.
yeah. I couldn't quite believe it.
Yeah, no, that's fantastic. So these are then the voice actors. How did you go about finding the voice actors for these roles, and what can you tell us about them?
Well, that was another thing where I had full expectation that no one would reply to me at all. So I just put it on Twitter and said, I'm looking for voice actors. I ended up getting over 1,000 auditions.
Wow.
Yeah. And I listened through every single one of them.
Wow. Listen to all 1,000 auditions.
Yeah. The crazy thing is the demo has 8 characters in it. The full game has an additional 25 characters in it. And so once I realized I'd got 1,000 auditions, I was going, oh my goodness, what's that going to mean when I get auditions for 25 characters? That's going to be 4,000 and something auditions I'm going to have to listen to. So I'm going to have to change the way I do the voice find voice actors. But it was just getting auditions, and then people just sent them in. I listened through them, and there were a lot of really good auditions, but I'm really happy with the voice actors we ended up with.
And who are the voice? So who plays the main character, Murphy McCalligan? Can you tell us anything about him?
Murphy McCalligan, that's Josh Portillo.
Okay.
That was really fun. We had the demo recording took about 5 hours to go through all the dialogue, and it was so surreal because at one point he was reading out the inventory descriptions, like when you right click on an inventory item and Murphy says it was a blah 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 blah, and as he was reading the lines out, it felt like I was playing the game kind of months ago. It was
I can imagine.
A real experience. And then we've got Ledoux, who is the editor at the newspaper. Gerald Hill, who's in the chat now, who plays Ned Kipps. We have Joey Seoirse, I think his surname is pronounced, who plays the Gravedigger, who does a really great kind of almost cartoony but still realistic way of doing the character. Some really good voice actors.
From what I've played, it do sound really good, and as I mentioned, authentic. So looking forward to finding out more, especially the fisherman. It's looking forward to getting there. I suppose then we've spoken about the coloring and the background. But again, for people listening who maybe mightn't have seen the trailer, how would you describe the backgrounds and the graphics in the game? So how would you say that what your objective is, and how would you describe to someone who hasn't seen the game?
Well, I think when I started it, the goal that I wrote down was dripping with atmosphere. And that's kind of what led everything with the graphic design. The way it worked is that we actually have 2 concept artists who drew out the backgrounds initially in concept form. Well, 3 actually, in that we had one other person who's a former Imagineer, who designed Splash Mountain at Walt Disney World and Toontown at Disneyland, California, and he designed Belmore Manor and Dead Nettle, the port town at in the game. But then we had 2 other concept designers who did all the others. Yevhen Karpenko, who's a Ukrainian artist, and Derek Benson, who's a video game artist. And then once we had those, we then got the line work drawn up by an artist called David Chipura, and the artwork that he's done is absolutely fantastic. It's just black on white, but they look amazing. And then after that, we gave them to Tanya Rieri, who's an artist that worked on Broken Sword 5.
Yes.
And she colored everything apart from 2 backgrounds, just because we had a scheduling clash on 2 of them. But 60 something backgrounds she colored, and they're fantastic.
Yeah, no, they absolutely, again, we said out the first thing that I think many people noticed and got our attention, and yeah, then from there the story and everything, and yeah, now you got you're successful on Kickstarter.
Well, I should say as well, it's that how good their art is. That's the reason that I wanted to do the art book, because I realized that concept art is incredible and the line work art is incredible, and if it wasn't for an art book, that would never be seen. So I knew I had to put it, and also the character design as well, the graphic design as well, all the documents and things like that. And even I want to have a section on the animation as well, because Matthew Creed, who's the animation director on the game, has sent me so many photos of him, videos of him acting out movements that have gone into the game. I think I have to put those together on paper, and so people can see what he went through to get the animation that was needed.
Oh, fantastic. I love these little extras as well that go with games as well, so really appreciate it as well. So I'm looking forward to that. Well, there are 2 questions. I will get to Jim Hughes' question in just a bit, but Gerald Hilden asks what he says: I love the level of detail that's gone into the art style and world building. As we mentioned, it shows in the dialogue, big box items and artwork. Did the visual design change throughout the development of the game?
I don't think it did, actually. I think I knew what I was after in my head, and it's quite, by saying Broken Sword line work meets Monkey Island coloring, I think really encapsulates it. So it was just a process of finding the artists that I needed to be able to deliver that. And I think I just got incredibly lucky. With the concept artist and line work artist, that was just going through Reddit. That was just saying, this is what I'm after. Can anyone provide this? And being extremely lucky that they got in touch with me. With Tanya, I actually went through the credits for Broken Sword 5 to look up who contributed the artwork for it, and then sent her an email based off that. Unfortunately, she had an open schedule at the time, so we were able to do it.
Oh, fantastic. Yeah, no, definitely. You're working with really talented animators and, artists, and which we can clearly see as well. Yeah, I'll ask you Jim Hughes' question now, which is a question that I was going to ask as well, but I'll ask you this now. If this game is successful, which at least the Kickstarter already is, but if this game is successful, do you already have ideas for a follow-up? Or would you use any of the ideas, or do you have any ideas what you would do after releasing this game if it's successful? And let's say it will be.
Well, the thing, yeah, it's, so I should say that. So most of this game I've self-funded.
Okay.
So I've put, obviously we have nowhere near the budget of big budget adventure games. It's definitely an indie game. But it is, then I need to be I need to be financially successful with the project if I was to ever think about making a second one, because I don't think I could financially sustain going through this again otherwise.
Right. You're only going bankrupt.
Yeah, I think that's what would happen. And the budget that I've been working with is so tight. So yeah, it's been it's been hard fun, I think is the phrase that comes out. So I do occasionally have ideas of what we could do as a follow-up, but whenever I tell them to my wife Sophie, she just goes, no, let's finish this one first and see what happens then, which I think is probably the right attitude to take to it.
That I think that's fair enough. She sounds very smart, logical as well. But so thank you, Jim, as well. Now, well, Jared Hill says The Adventures of Ned Kipps.
Yeah.
And Matthew Creed says hello. He says I pretty much acted out the whole game. By the way, hi, hello, Matthew.
Very good. That's our animation director.
Oh, perfect.
Who is incredible. I went through. I got in touch with a lot of animation studios when I was trying to first figure out the animation for the game, and I feel so lucky that Jammy Custard were interested in doing it, because they are not just delivering the minimum that's needed for the game. They have just as much passion for getting the animation as good as it possibly can be. And I'm so grateful to all of the animators for doing that. Like Matthew will get in touch with me and go, this animation that we did 3 months ago, I've found a way to improve it. Here's the files. And then we can just immediately put them into the game, and it's even better. It's fantastic working with them. Oh, well, that's Jammy Custard Animation. I should give them a proper call out. They're based in Cardiff.
Oh, fantastic. Yeah, it's great to hear when people like that, they're passionate themselves, that they're always looking to, I suppose, improve, but, make it better even, and then go back to you. And it's
that's the biggest thing. It's like, I think pretty much everyone on the project has done that. Like David Chipura will go, I'll ask him to do a background and to do something one way, and he's come back to me before and said, this would be better if we did it this other way. And that's more work for him to do, but he suggests it, and he's right. That is the better way to do it. And then he delivers on it spectacularly. And yeah, it's so good, that the team we have on the game.
Yeah, no, that's great to hear. So I suppose then, now keep the questions coming in. If you have any more questions, I will certainly do my best to ask them. But I wanted to ask you then about the Kickstarter, which we have mentioned, but I don't think we've spoken about much yet, apart from the fact that it has been incredibly successful already after one day. So you mentioned that you self-funded at first. How much of the game has already been funded, and how much is left with the Kickstarter? Then how much do you need? I mean, it's already funded with the Kickstarter, but how much is left then?
But I don't think that's sunk in yet. It's like, I've just been having worries that I won't be able to afford the rest of the game, and now to know that money is there, that it's ready to pay for it, is just unbelievable. The money specifically is the two big expenditures that we need to make are the last batch of animation, and also the voice acting for the full game. Because we have a lot of lines of dialogue and a lot of characters as well. So those are the two main ones. But then in addition to that, there is a small amount we need to put towards testing it fully, porting it to as many platforms as we can. I can't wait for one day having a Nintendo Switch version. I think that'll be awesome. And some smaller things like that. But saying that, all the character design is done, all the backgrounds are done, apart from the ones that are in the stretch goals. All the graphic design now is done. The music is all paid for. I know a lot of people some people go to Kickstarter and kind of just throw a number out there, but mine was very much, this is how much I can put into the game. This is how much more I need to finish it. And that's what I put down as my Kickstarter goal.
No, fantastic. Because so this was a specific goal that you just to finish the game. It's not like you haven't started or you've only done this very small section. It's nearly done, but you just need a little bit more to get over the line.
That's it. I didn't feel I could go to people and ask for money for the game without putting in 2 years of my life, and as much money as I could afford into it myself. before I then ask people to help me finish it off.
Fantastic. Now we spoke about the 2 stretch goals, but and now maybe when this comes out from the podcast, there will be more stretch goals. You presumably have made more money from the Kickstarter. Do you have any other stretch goals in mind? I know you're engaging with the community for feedback. I don't know, and I would certainly don't want to ask you to reveal it if you can't, but do you have yourself in your mind some stretch goals? So if you get, say you get 30,000, will that make the game much bigger, or will you be putting something else? Do you have anything in mind?
Yeah, there are lots of ideas. There are definitely lots of opportunities for stretch goals. I think the biggest thing is figuring out what order to put them in, and what do people want most, and trying to deliver on that. I think my philosophy with the stretch goals is that I want them to be things that improve the game for everyone. So I don't want one of the stretch goals to be something that only benefits the people who've pledged for the big box, because that's just a small niche of the people who've contributed to the project. So every stretch goal is going to go directly towards making the game itself better. So that might be additional puzzles, additional backgrounds, additional animation, additional music, translations for the game, things like that. But I definitely want people to tell me what they would most be interested in for the ones that we might get to in the future. And the best way to do that is, we have a Discord as well. So if people join that and let me know what they think, that would be really helpful.
Okay. And so then, you mentioned some of the rewards, like a big box as well. What can we expect with some of the rewards? So first of all, what's in this big box that is along with the game? Because there are a few really cool items that I saw.
A lot of stuff is in the big box. That's the thing. Yeah. So I want it to be like, I want it to be that so I should say, right. So about 2 years ago, I got a present from my wife, and it was this wooden crate that was like nailed shut. And it was all themed to be like an ancient Egyptian museum delivery. And so my wife got it, and she actually had to get a hammer out to pry the nails out of the crate. And then she opened it, and there was straw inside it. And there was like archaeological documents and photographs, old photographs, and maps of Egypt and telegrams, and all amongst straw and things like that. And it was just so, it felt like you were part of a story, being able to take all of these things out and piece together what went on this archaeological dig. And that was the inspiration that I had for the big box. I wanted to pack it with documents that felt like you were really kind of immersed in the world of Foolish Mortals. So we've got a newspaper from 1899 on when the Belmore Trading Company brought a mysterious shipment back to the island. We've got Abigail Belmore's wedding schedule from the fated wedding that disappeared 30 years ago. We've got the magazine that Murphy McCallan found that first told them about the legend of Belmore Manor. We've got tarot cards in there. Just all of these really cool documents. And the cool thing about with them as well is that we're going to get them printed on paper appropriate to what they are. So the newspaper is going to be printed on like flimsy paper that feels like real newspaper. The wedding schedule is going to be on cardstock like you get at an actual wedding. And so it's all going to be tangible, and you're going to be able to feel it. And then the content of it, there's backstory and lore and clues and additional information and everything that you'll be able to get by going through all of these documents. Wow. And then in addition to that, I should also say we're putting a manual in there as well, but like a proper retro style manual.
I miss those.
I know. Because that's what would happen with me. Like I'd buy a new big box, and then in the car on the way home, in the back seat, I'd open the box and I'd already be in the game because I was reading the manual, and I want that feel again. Yeah. So a
No,
lot of cool stuff.
it sounds very well thought out and really cool. Now, first of all, again, kudos to your wife. I mean, she went above and beyond. I've never heard of anyone getting a present like that.
Yeah, it was so cool.
Wow. I mean, wow. And
It's like, it was like adventure game brought to life. It was,
yeah. Well, it sounds fantastic. And then you had the big box as well, and everything goes, as we said, everything is relevant to the game itself. Now I know there have been other developers who also promised, well, we mentioned T-shirts and physical rewards, but I don't think they really considered the cost or how much effort and how much work it would be. And I know that some of them didn't end up sending the rewards to people. So have you thought about that, with the cost, and have you planned out, or have you spoken to any other developers who have done Kickstarters or anything just to get yourselves prepared? Or
yeah, I did. I did. So I think I've emailed every printing company in not just my county, but like the entire northeast of the United Kingdom to make sure I had proper quotes for everything that I wanted to get. And in addition to that, I put safety margins into it as well.
okay,
to make sure. Yeah, I tried to put a lot of work. Like, fingers crossed, nothing else major changes. But I think the thing is, I personally can't wait to get that big box and hold all of that stuff that's going into it. So that's driving me to make it the best for everyone and make sure it's not just fanciful.
Yeah, no, absolutely. No, it's sounds again, it just said it sounds fantastic. I have included a link in the description. I'm sure everyone watching now is aware, but just in case people want to check out what's on it as well. And I will include it in the show notes for people who want to check it out. But are there any other rewards you have to get the big box, or can you get just a digital reward if people choose as well? So what other rewards can people get?
Yeah, so if I'm remembering my numbers correctly, £14 is just for the digital game. But like I mentioned, that's the digital game with all of the stretch goals that we unlock as well. So even if you're backing at that level, you'll still get everything we managed to add in. Next one up from that is £24, which is the deluxe digital version, which will include a digital version of the art book, a digital version of the Diary of Murphy McCallan, which is another book that we're doing, which is going to be a narrativized walkthrough of the game, which is inspired by the Monkey Island hint books from the early 90s, which was the memoirs of Guybrush Threepwood. And it's a story written walkthrough that I was addicted to as a child. So I knew that I wanted to have, I think in one of the classes at my school, we were asked to bring in a book to read, and I brought in the hint book for Monkey Island 1. And my teacher had to say, that's not a story. And I went, no, look in the back, it's written out as a story. And I was allowed to read it for our reading time.
Hey, you managed to get that in there.
Yeah. And then after that, it goes up. Then it goes to the big box, which has all that stuff in. Then a deluxe big box, which also comes with the art book and a physical version of Murphy's Diary. We're going to do some metal pins for the Belmore Trading Company, which is kind of the big organization that's in the game, and also the Captain's Club, which is one of the key locations in the game. And then I think I'm missing one out here, but I think then we go up to at the very top. There's a deluxe big box plus, which is the big box, all of the deluxe stuff as well, but also a bunch of we have 3 add-ons that we're offering as well, and then beyond that, there's an executive producer credit as well if people really want to back us. And I should go into the 3 add-ons because they're quite cool. The big one being the one that Liam in the chat has helped me with, which is the spectral sense of the Devil's Rock perfumery, where you'll actually get to smell what these locations in the game smell like.
Oh wow!
And Liam sent me up. He sent me up at one point. He sent me 7 different sea smells to think which one of these smells most like the beach of Devil's Rock.
Wow.
Which is not something I expected to be doing, but it's so much fun. But it's so much fun going because they match up. So there's the riverboat in the game, the voodoo riverboat, the Spirit Queen, and so we have like fire and incense and those type of smells that you can like take out when you go to that location. And I think I've included in the Kickstarter that it hasn't been done since 1986 with Leather Goddesses of Phobos.
Well, that's
It had a
36 years ago.
Card.
Yeah, that's fantastic. So that's 36 years ago that it has been done since then.
Yeah. And it's long overdue, I think.
Absolutely. So we could see it again. Liam says, excited to create a stink. No, but it shows that you have really got, thought about this. And as you mentioned, you are successful. And we'll get to hello, Louise Tay Art. Again, my apologies for pronunciation. I'll get to your question in just a second. So first of all, about the Kickstarter, do you have any advice to any other developers who want to go on Kickstarter, start a game of Kickstarter? So what advice would you give people as now a successful Kickstarter creator? What would you say to people?
At the moment, I don't know, because I don't think it's quite sunk in that I have been successful. Because literally 3 days ago, I was in exactly the same boat of just asking other adventure game developers, does this look right? Have I priced this correctly? Does this look enticing? And I think I asked a dozen adventure game developers who've done Kickstarters whether this looked right to them. And it hasn't sunk in yet that it's gone well.
Well, it has gone very well, and again, Luis, I will call him because I can't pronounce it. He says, "Hi, this is Luis. Keep up the good work. We love your game. Do you have plans for other platforms as well?" Which I think we've already covered, but you mentioned Switch.
So Visionaire allows us to do PC, Mac, iOS, Android, Linux, Switch. I think that's so we did. So we definitely were. We actually already have a demo for the Mac. The only problem is that there's a really annoying bug where if you move the cursor to the very top or the very bottom of the screen, it shoots along to the side for some reason, and we just ran out of time to be able to fix that. But that won't. It should hopefully it's not a big bug, and before long we can get that version out. But yeah, for the full game, I definitely intend to just do as many platforms as we can.
Fantastic. Well, before we finish up, if anybody has any other questions, please put them in the chat. And I meant to ask you, David, about the music in the game. So what kind of music and what can you tell us about who created the music in the game? Because again, that's something that I thought was quite good in the demo.
Yeah, I think it's that the composer is called Matt Isaac. And again, it's one of those things where I just feel so lucky that I managed. He emailed. I just put a call out saying I'm looking for composers for the game, and Matt was one of those people that messaged me. And his music is just perfect for it. Like if you go through the trailer and just listen to the music that's in the background, it's fantastic. Like he wrote. We used we call it the Foolish Waltz. That's the main theme that's used throughout the game. And that was the first piece he did for it. And he just kind of just nailed it. That was the music that set the tone for it. For the rest of the game, we are definitely trying to go Broken Sword style with it. So backgrounds have entrance music rather than looping background music, unless it's diegetic. The Captain's Club has some awesome pieces that loop around, and we've got another location in the game with a piano player who plays piano. That's on a loop. But yeah, he absolutely nailed it. And I think especially with the opening, the cinematic that you in the demo where you learn about the backstory of Belmore Manor and Abigail and the three brothers and everything, his music for that is just mesmerizing. And there's a big finale in the demo as well, and his music is just so punchy for that. It just hits perfectly. And another really cool bit that I like is the music box theme of the Foolish Waltz. Now, I'd love to get an actual music box made up that plays that. Dun, 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 dun. That would be so cool.
Yeah. No, it definitely. And how did you work? How did you collaborate with the composer?
It was mainly saying it. I sent him all of the assets that we had, and I just told him the emotion that I needed to hit for the scene. Initially, it was just he'd write. We called them interstitials, which I don't think is quite the right term, but it's what we end up using, and flourishes. So interstitials were like 30-second pieces of music. Flourishes were like 10-second pieces of music that kind of just punctuate things. And we just said, we're going to need these emotions throughout the game. And he just wrote pieces for all of those emotions. And then later on, when we started working on the cutscenes and the cinematics and everything, that's where he had to work to a specific timing, specific times with it. And he's so good, because with the demo, we only had 2 weeks for him to write the music, because it took so much work getting the animation in and the dialogue in, and obviously the music has to follow on from that. But he managed to just do incredible pieces of music on such a tight deadline, and I'm so grateful that he was able to do it so well.
No, that's fantastic to hear. No, it's great. I suppose another question that I had is about the big box. So, say when the Kickstarter is finished, if anybody's watching or listening to this after the Kickstarter and they really like the big box, do you think that it would be possible to get the big box, or is it just during the Kickstarter at the moment?
I would imagine it's just going to be one print run.
Right.
Yeah, I don't.
But you will still be able to get the game.
Yes, yeah, absolutely, yeah. But it's like I might do a few extra just because I want to make sure I have some safe ones. But I think it's probably just going to be one run for anyone who buys it.
Right. I mean, we don't want to, we want you healthy.
Right.
we don't want you going mad or anything. No, fantastic. And then when do you have any possible release date in mind? Are you able to say when do you think, or just when it's ready?
I know it will be next year, but I'm not entirely sure when next year. The problem is, because this is the first time I've done a video game, there's things where I go, okay, I think this is how long it'll take to do, and I'm wildly wrong. Yeah, like some stuff.
It always takes longer.
Well, not necessarily. No, there have been some things where we've gone, like just yesterday. That was the first time we put out a patch for the game, and we thought, oh my goodness, this is going to be so much of a headache. I hope that, and it was easy. It was so simple to do, mainly thanks to Steam and their automated way of doing it. But that completely surprised me. But yeah, other stuff definitely took way longer than we expected.
No, that is true. You made a change to the demo in one day, so presumably the day after the Kickstarter, we can expect a full game.
Yeah, maybe that would. Yeah, it'd be good if it worked that way. Yeah. But I should also say, one of the benefits that I had from having a tight budget is that I didn't have much leeway to kind of just do stuff without reason to. So the game was very much planned out. I knew exactly what backgrounds I needed, what character designs, what animations I needed very early on. And it's just been a process of building those assets up and up and up. So there was some planning, hope, I think.
Yeah, no, I think it definitely looks it. Well, if anybody in the chat has any other questions, last chance before we finish, because I think I have asked all the questions that I have. Is there anything else that you would like to mention, David, that we haven't covered? I know we've been well over an hour now.
Gosh, well, yeah, I didn't realize the time.
Yeah,
it's fun talking about. It's fun talking about the game.
Yeah. Well, thank you very much for joining. As I said, I was looking forward. I was hoping to speak to you when I first saw the game, and I'm delighted to have spoken to you. Hopefully, we can meet in person. And yeah, again, kudos to your wife again for programming. And I think they're the best presents that anyone has ever gotten.
Yeah, she definitely needs a lot of credit for this game. And also, kind of going into it, I don't think she ever in her life imagined she'd be the lead programmer of an adventure game. I think before she met me, I don't think she knew what an adventure game was. She just never played one before.
I was going to ask you, is she an adventure game fan herself? Or?
She is now. Yeah.
Okay, that's great.
Yeah, I've won her around. Her favorite game is two favorites are probably Broken Sword 1, like me, and also Toonstruck. She really liked Toonstruck.
That's fantastic. So well, that's great that the two of you joined forces and you got her into adventure games. No, that's fantastic.
Just building the adventure game community slowly.
Yeah, well, look, I'm doing the same with my partner, trying to get her into. She's coming to Adventure X. So that's
fantastic.
That's a start. But yeah, no, but thank you so much, David, and huge congratulations on the Kickstarter.
Thank you very much,
and on the game as well. It's looking fantastic. I, like many other people, can't wait to play the full version, and I look forward to seeing development of the game over the next year or so. And thank you to everyone who's joined in the chat. Including Liam and Matthew and Jared and Josh and Adventure Game Geek, and sorry if I missed anyone, DLS and Luis and George as well, and just everyone who's joined us and anyone listening as well. If you are still listening or watching during the Kickstarter, when is the last date again of the Kickstarter?
I think it's November 3rd or 4th, or Thursday.
Okay. So you still have time if you're still watching now, if you haven't backed already. So
yeah, and I am planning, so we're planning to stretch goals as well, and there may even be the possibility of some new rewards being added as well.
Oh wow, so keep an eye on the Kickstarter page then.
Absolutely, yeah.
So the link will be in the show notes and in the chat as well. So well, thank you, David, and hopefully we can chat again soon. It's been an absolute pleasure.
Yeah, sounds like I'll see you at Adventure X then.
Yeah, looking forward to it.
Awesome.